This first segment of the video series will be how a National Archery in the Schools program range is laid out. Downrange, you'll see the arrow curtain. It's the backstop for the targets to catch any errant arrows. In front of the arrow curtain are the target butts with paper faces that the students will shoot at. As we move up the range, you'll see floor quivers on shooting lines, and you see bow racks where the students will hang their bows. We have lines taped on the floor as well. Here, where the students will wait, is called the waiting line. And then we move to a 15-meter shooting line, we have a 10-meter shooting line, and then we move to the target line, which is 6 feet from the targets, where students will wait while their lane mate pulls arrows from the target butt. This next video segment is going to be the safe operation of the range while the student archers compete. But before we can start blowing whistles and shooting arrows, we need to get scorecards down to the target butts. Go ahead and put your scorecards on your scoreboards. The lane official will make sure that scorecards are in place and that shooter numbers have been bubbled in on each scorecard. Otherwise, we won't know who shot that score. As a lane official, the first thing I do before we can begin operating the range is to make sure that all the archers' toes are completely behind the waiting line. When they are, I'll raise my hand so that the announcer can see that the range is ready, and he'll blow 2 whistles to get bow. Go ahead and walk, get your bow. I'm making sure that they're walking, and they're walking up to the 10-meter shooting line. They're going to straddle the shooting line, 1 foot on each side of the shooting line. You're going to walk with your bows up to the shooting line, straddle the shooting line with your bows right side up, and place the bow on your toe. Make sure the cam's down. There you go. The toe closest to the target. Now when you're in your lane, there must be 2 archers in your 5-foot wide lane. So make sure that you stay in your half of the lane, that 1 foot is on each side of the shooting line, and that the quiver is on the shooting line and directly in front of the archer. Each archer has their own quiver in front of them. Okay, we want to make sure 1 foot is on each side of the shooting line, so straddle the shooting line, there you go, and make sure your quiver is on the shooting line directly in front of you. That's it, perfect. The first end at 10 meters will be a practice end of 5 arrows. So when you hear the whistle to shoot, you'll shoot 5 arrows for practice. I see everybody's ready. I see bows on toes. The range is ready for the 1 whistle command. Shoot. As a lane official, I'm watching to make sure that the archers follow our protocols. Here we see a couple of archers with bows being knocked horizontal. They're going to bang and interfere with each other, so I want to make sure they hold those bows vertical. They're going to shoot their 5 practice arrows. They have 2 minutes to do that. If an arrow bounces off the target, we're going to give that archer another arrow immediately and let them shoot that arrow again. If an arrow's dropped, the archer will raise his hand. The lane official will bring him another arrow that is the same color as the one that he's shooting. He was shooting blue, so here's a blue. That dropped arrow will stay there for safety's sake until it's time to go get arrows from the target. Then it will be picked up. When the archers are finished shooting, they should clear the shooting line, re-rack their bows, and go back behind the waiting line. All toes are behind the waiting line. I can signal the range official to blow the signal to go get arrows. Okay, walk down. Remember, these arrows are unscored, so leave your scorecard alone. This is the target line, which is 6 feet or 2 yards from the targets. This is where 1 archer will wait while his lane mate pulls arrows from the target. This protects the waiting archer from the knock of the arrow poking them. So this is the target line which all archers will wait their turn so that there's only 1 archer pulling arrows from the target at a time. When 2 archers have shot the same target, 1 will wait behind the target line while the other archer pulls his arrows. When that archer's pulled his arrows, then the other archer can go to the target. This protects the waiting archer from the knock end of the arrow. 2 hands on the arrows, covering the points, another hand, and then walk back to the quivers, and then go behind the waiting line. That's a safe arrow carry. Make sure the points are completely covered by your hand. All toes are behind the waiting line. Signal the range official for the get bow signal. Get bow. Walk, please. Lane officials, you're making sure the students are walking again. They straddle the shooting line. bows on toes, toe nearest the targets, and that the quiver is directly in front of them on the shooting line. Once bows are on toes, I signal to the announcer that he can give the shoot signal. Shoot. Remember, they're keeping your bows vertical so as not to interfere with your lane mate. When you're finished shooting, re-rack your bow and go behind the waiting line. That's it. Go behind the waiting line. It's very important, lane officials, that the archers stay on their feet when they're at the targets, so that their eyes and the rest of their body is more safe from the knock end of the arrow. So if you see them on their knees, you need to say, up on your feet, please, so they'll raise to their feet. When they're scoring their arrows on their scorecards, the scorecard, this is the 10-meter block, the top half of the scorecard. There's a scoring, there's a place to score end number 1, end number 2, and end number 3. Each end has five arrows shot. So they're going to be scoring end 3 now. Each line is 1 arrow. 0 through 10 points are what's possible on each end. When they're scoring the targets, these are 80-centimeter targets, and the rings, the value's indicated on the ring, but the outside white is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the first yellow ring is 9, and then the entire center, even the little circle with the plus in it, that's a 10. If an arrow is touching a line, like this arrow is touching a line here, you give the archer the higher value. So this would be an 8 rather than a 7. Even if it were just barely touching, you would still get the higher value. It's important that the archers score all their arrows before the target or the arrows are touched. We're going to go get arrows. This was your last scoring end at 10 meters. All toes are behind the waiting line. Lane official will give a signal that we're ready to go get arrows. Walk again, please. Come on up to the target line and stop. Let me explain to the lane official volunteers what you're going to do now. You're going to stay on your feet, and then one of you is going to come up at a time, and you're going to give the scoreboard to your lane mate, and you're going to call your arrow while your lane mate records his arrow on the scorecard. And then we're going to reverse roles. So now you come on up and give her the scoreboard. Show her which scorecard is yours. It's the red one. Okay, Ethan. Now, staying on your feet, call the arrow. Before you touch it, tell her what the value is. Make sure you agree with the value. An 8. Okay. Okay, and then she's bubbling in the 8. Tell her the next value. A 9. And one more arrow, or is that all? One more arrow. Oh, you need a line? Okay, well, that is an 8. It's touching the 8 ring, so it gives an 8 value. Now you can come on back. Switch roles. You take the board. You come up and call your arrows, and Ethan will record them. All right, now you're ready to put the board down and pull your arrows. Each of you pull your own arrows. If you're going to pull arrows first, Anna, Ethan will wait behind here. You go ahead and pull your arrows. Look back every time you pull. Make sure Ethan's safe. Lane official volunteers, you're making sure they stay on their feet, that the archer calls his or her arrows while the lane mate bubbles the score on the scorecard. Then they reverse roles. You call your own arrow, but your lane mate is the one that bubbles the scorecard. Now it's your turn. She's carrying her arrows, points covered, back to the quiver. Lane official volunteers, we pretend now we just shot 1 practice end and 3 scoring end at 10 meters. It's time now for the archers to pick up their quivers and take them to the second and furthest distance in NASP, which is the 15-meter shooting line. Make sure they have the quiver, they keep the quiver in the same lane that they've been shooting in. So archers, pick up your quivers, put them in the 15-meter lane, and then go behind the waiting line. Now we're ready to shoot the second half of a NASP tournament. All toes are behind the waiting lines. We'll get the signal to get bows. Get bows. Remember, walk again, straddle the shooting line, quiver in front of you. Bows on toes. Lane official, when you see that all the archers are straddling the line, 1 foot on each side of the shooting line, and that there's a quiver in front of each archer on the shooting line, and that bows are on toes, you can give the signal to the range announcer to give the shoot whistle command. Shoot. Lane official, again, you're making sure the students are not interfering with their lane mate, that they're not crowding their lane mate, that they stay in their half of the lane, that their bows are more or less vertical as they knock them so they're not banging their partner's bows. If an arrow is dropped on the floor, make sure that arrow stays on the floor and give that archer a replacement arrow. If the arrow bounces off the target, you'll give them another arrow so they can shoot that bounce out over during this end. When they're finished shooting, make sure that they re-rack their bow and they walk behind the waiting line. As soon as they're finished, they must clear the shooting line. When all toes are behind the waiting line, we're ready to go get arrows. Okay, it's walking, please. This is your last scoring end at 15 meters. Come on up and score the arrows by alternating. So the archer calls her own arrows while the lane mate bubbles the score. When you're finished calling all your arrows, you come up and verify that they were bubbled correctly. If they're correct, then you'll give a signal for your other archer to go up. When you finish pulling your arrows, you'll look over your scorecard, you'll sign your scorecard, your lane mate will sign your scorecard, and you'll do the same thing on the other scorecard. At all times, the scorecards must remain at the target butt. You can be disqualified if you take your scorecard back towards the shooting line. Now you've scored your last arrows, you've both confirmed your scorecards are accurate, you've signed your scorecard and your lane mate is signed as a witness. You've just completed your NASP competition at this tournament. You pick up your arrows. If they're your own arrows, you can leave the range with your arrows and your bow. If they're the tournament's arrows, please leave those arrows in the quiver. Thank you for joining us today in this competition and for being so safe. Lane official, you're going to stay back with the scorecards. You're going to pull the scorecards from the boards, make sure that they are signed and that you have shooter numbers on every card. Collect them all. And a lane official will surely come shortly and take these from you so that they can be scanned in the scanning room. This lane official is Patrick O'Connell, the coordinator of Kentucky NASP. During this last segment of the training video, Lane Volunteers, we want to talk about managing the archer or communicating with the archer. The number one complaint we get from our tournaments is from an archer or a coach who says that the lane official actually distracted or bothered or somehow disrupted that archer's performance. It's important to minimize your communication with and interaction with the archer themselves. If the archer is doing something that needs to be fixed, it's best to have the coach fix it because the coach knows how to talk to that individual archer. Now, if it's something simple like they're at the targets and they've gotten down on their knees, you need to say, please stand up, stay on your feet. That's okay. Or if they're carrying arrows with one hand instead of two, then you can say, please carry the arrow with two hands and the point's covered. That's okay to say those kinds of things to the archer. But if you've got an archer that is doing some things while they shoot, that's part of their form that need to be fixed because they're unsafe, talk to the coach about that and they will correct it. Now we're going to have Ethan here demonstrate one of the shooting issues that can occur, a high draw. We want to make sure the arrow point stays below the top of the curtain so that if it's released by accident, we don't go over the curtain and damage the building. So Ethan, you'll demonstrate a high draw and shot for us. Watch Ethan. He started out, the point of the arrow is above the target, and then he comes down. Had that arrow been released while the arrow was above the target, we would have damaged the facility. Now, that's part of Ethan's shooting form. It's best for me, instead of talking to Ethan about that, to go talk to the coach, say, hey, your archer on lane number 5 has a high draw. You need to get them to come to a pre-draw and stop before they draw. And then the coach will fix that. Another situation that can arise on the shooting line is an archer crowding the lane mate. Here you see two archers. One archer right here is trying to stand in the middle of the lane. This archer is standing in her half of the lane. So this one is crowding the other one. And so we need to get this archer to move back. The lane official can say, for the first time, say, you need to get in your half of the lane, so I need you to move back. And if she moves back, would you go ahead and move back a little bit? Give your archer, there you go. Now we have better spacing here. Now if it happens again, this archer really wants to be in the middle. It's time to go talk to the coach and have the coach fix that for us. Patrick O'Connell, you're the coordinator of NASP in Kentucky, and I appreciate you and your Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources for bringing the crew together and equipment together so that we can conduct this training video. Thank you, Patrick. And I want to thank Anna as well. You've come here to help us with these demonstrations. Tyler, you've been great too. Shelby, thank you for helping us with this video. And Ethan, thank you for shooting well and following all the safety protocols. We couldn't have done this video without you, and we can't do the tournaments without you either. So thank you. Lane official volunteers, you've now watched the training video that will help you be a better lane official at NASP tournaments, whether they're local, regional, state, national, or world events. You'll have a better time, and the archers will have a much better time participating in our tournaments now that you have mastered the skills necessary for being a tournament volunteer.